So I want you to think about the last time you woke up and your heart is just like absolutely pounding.
Oh, yeah, like you've just run a marathon in your sleep,
Exactly. I mean, from a dream that felt, honestly, way more real than actual reality.
where it's not just a standard nightmare, but a whole psychological thriller.
Right. Authored entirely by your own subconscious. And it's designed specifically to force you to look at the exact thing you spend, like, all your waking hours avoiding.
And you just wake up completely exhausted,
Yeah.
emotionally drained, gasping for air.
Yeah, and you realize you just lived this entire hyper-vivid alternate timeline,
Wow.
all in the span of a single REM cycle.
It's intense.
It really is. And that visceral, terrifying, illuminating space, that is exactly where we are taking you today. Welcome to the deep dive.
I'm really excited for this one. We are stepping into what is honestly arguably the most complex diagnostic landscape in human psychology.
Which is saying something, considering the stuff we usually cover.
Totally. Because, when we try to understand human anxiety, we usually look for clean binary markers like, I don't know, a spike in cortisol or a behavioral pattern of avoidance.
Right. The easy stuff to measure.
Exactly. But today, we are looking at something much richer. We're examining this highly detailed, incredibly specific dream journal entry.
And it doesn't even read like a normal diary.
No, not at all. It functions way less like a diary and more like a black box flight recorder. Like it was just pulled from the wreckage of a highly stressed human mind.
Wow, a black box. I love that analogy.
Yeah, and this particular case study, it involves childhood friends, a really high mountain, an elaborate lie involving a boxing gym, a high-stakes car chase.
Wait, a car chase?
Oh, massive car
Yeah.
chase. And a deeply emotional confrontation at a fence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the mission for our deep dive today isn't just to, recount a bizarre, surreal story for entertainment.
Right, we're going deeper than that.
Yeah, we are going to deconstruct the actual neurological and psychological architecture of this dream.
We want to see how the sausage is made, basically.
Exactly. We want to explore how very real waking anxiety, specifically the crushing weight of guilt, the paralyzing fear of authority, and this really complex web of loyalty we build around ourselves, how all of that translates into these cinematic dreamscapes.
Because the dreaming brain is not just firing random synapses.
Right, despite what those older theories of sleep used to say.
Yeah, exactly. When a dream is this narrative-driven, this emotionally coherent, we're looking at a highly active problem-solving environment. The brain is running a sophisticated simulation.
A simulation of what, exactly?
In this case, the specific problem this dreamer's brain is frantically trying to solve, or at least process, is this profound, suffocating sense of relational guilt and social obligation.
Okay, so let's get right into the spatial geometry of this simulation, right? Because the narrative anchor of this dream, it starts in a place of extreme elevation.
Yes, the mountain.
Right. The dreamer is with two old childhood friends, and they're standing at the summit of this towering mountain, and the detail here is just meticulous.
It really is.
They are looking down at a vast regional landscape, and the dreamer specifically notes densely packed housing, large hospitals, sprawling shopping malls.
The altitude is extreme.
Yeah, it's so high up that the houses down below look like tiny, insignificant dots. So I find it fascinating how the brain chooses the initial rendering point for a dream. Like, why start on a mountain?
Well, spatial mapping in dreams is governed by the hippocampus, which, contains place cells and grid cells that help us navigate our physical world.
Okay, so it's pulling from real-world navigation.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the dream state, spatial elevation is rarely just geographical. It's profoundly psychological.
How so?
Well, in evolutionary biology, altitude represents safety, right? You can survey threats from above without being engaged.
Well, that makes total sense, like having the high ground.
Exactly. You have this tranquil, isolated mountaintop, and you're sharing it only with known, safe variables, which, in this dream, are the childhood friends. And below them is the sprawling, overwhelming evidence of human activity, societal obligation, and density. The anxiety zone, basically.
So the mountain isn't just a setting, it's literally a buffer zone.
A massive one.
Because the dreamer is looking down at that sprawling world, and they actually say out loud to their friends, "Shall we go down soon?"
Right, acknowledging the descent.
Yeah, and they say this knowing that waiting for them down in that sprawl is a looming, deeply dreaded obligation to go to a specific boxing gym. So the mountain is a literal delay tactic rendered in 3D by the brain.
It's brilliant, honestly.
It makes me think of those liminal spaces we create in waking life, like when you sit in your parked car in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside your house.
Oh, totally. After a brutal day at work.
Yes. You are physically inches away from your destination, but you are emotionally barricading yourself. You sit in that enclosed, elevated state of control, and you're just dreading the transition from the safe bubble into the demanding reality waiting on the other side of the door.
The psychology of transitions is exactly what's at play here. The driveway, or in this case this mountain, is a threshold. It is the final pocket of control before the anxiety environment takes over.
But the clock is ticking.
Exactly. Notice the phrasing. The dreamer says, "Shall we go down soon?" There's this implied inevitability to it.
Right, they can't stay up there forever.
The subconscious knows the simulation cannot remain static. The descent is unavoidable because the brain didn't generate this dream to relax on a mountain, right? It generated the dream to process the anxiety waiting at the bottom.
Wow, okay. Which brings us to the massive weight of guilt driving this inevitable descent. Because to understand the gravity of this dream, we have to pull in the real-world backstory that the source material provides.
Because it leads entirely into the dream logic.
It really does. So in waking reality, the dreamer used to attend the boxing gym waiting down below. And the training wasn't just tough, it was grueling.
Physically painful, mentally exhausting.
Yeah, to the point where just attending became a source of actual clinical distress for them.
And when humans face overwhelming chronic stress in an environment they feel they cannot master, a really common psychological defense mechanism is avoidance.
Which is exactly what happens here.
Right. In this case, the dreamer resorted to ghosting. They would cut off all contact and just disappear from the gym for months at a time out of sheer fear and discomfort.
Which is a classic flight response, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
deeply rooted in our limbic system. If the environment causes pain, remove the organism from the environment.
Which is just such a relatable trauma response. If you've ever completely ignored an email from a boss because the prospect of opening it makes you want to, throw up, you have engaged in this exact behavior.
You don't formally quit the job or the gym.
Right, because the confrontation of formally quitting requires interacting with the source of the fear, so you just evaporate.
You just vanish.
But here is the critical detail, the behavioral twist that makes this whole case study so compelling. After months of ghosting, the dreamer would eventually return to the gym, face the music, and pay in full for the months they missed.
They paid for time they never used.
Exactly, even though they weren't contractually obligated to do so. They would hand over the money for the exact month they spent hiding.
It's wild.
And a massive piece of context here is that the dreamer perceives the gym chairman as this terrifying, deeply intimidating authority figure. So what is the brain actually doing here? They are paying for months they didn't train. Isn't that just an anxiety test?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like a self-imposed financial penalty for failing to be tough enough.
Right.
It's a quantifiable manifestation of guilt. It functions almost like medieval indulgences,
Oh, like buying your way out of purgatory?
Exactly. The dreamer is terrified of the chairman, but they are also bound by a profound, maybe even pathological sense of hyper-responsibility.
Which is such a conflict.
From an evolutionary standpoint, guilt exists to maintain social cohesion. If we harm the tribe, guilt motivates us to repair the bond so we aren't ostracized.
And the dreamer feels they've harmed the tribe by disappearing.
Yes. They feel they have damaged the social contract with this authority figure by ghosting. Paying for the absent months is this desperate attempt to balance the scales.
So they penalize themselves financially to, buy back their right to exist in that space.
Precisely, to neutralize the chairman's hypothetical anger.
And this intense waking world guilt is the actual engine driving the dream's plot. Because while they are up on that safe mountain, the innocent childhood friends suggest that they all go visit the gym together.
Which is the worst possible suggestion.
It really is. And the dreamer completely panics. The idea of bringing safe people into the unsafe environment creates a total psychological collision.
The dreamer feels entirely stripped of power in front of the chairman. Having witnesses to that powerlessness, especially childhood friends who represent the dreamer's core, uncompromised self-frolicking, that is a massive threat to their ego stability.
Right, because these friends know the real them.
Exactly. The subconscious realizes that direct confrontation is way too threatening to process cleanly. So, the dream environment shifts to construct a protective measure.
And the protective measure it constructs is just utterly absurd. We leave the mountain, and the environment instantly shifts to an old izakaya, a traditional Japanese pub.
Right.
This feeling of powerlessness forces the subconscious to manufacture artificial authority. In the source material, the brain literally builds a fake environment, a pub, to administer liquid courage.
Yes, the alcohol.
The text notes that the alcohol in the dream gives the dreamer the nerve to finally agree to take the friends to the gym.
The introduction of alcohol in the dream state is neurobiologically fascinating.
Really? How so?
Well, even though the dreamer isn't actually consuming ethanol,
Mhm.
obviously the brain is simulating its effects. Alcohol in waking life suppresses the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making, logic, assessing consequences.
The voice of reason, basically.
Right. By simulating intoxication, the dreaming brain is essentially giving itself permission to abandon logical constraints and engage in highly risky, bizarre problem-solving.
Okay, well, the logic certainly breaks down immediately here. The friends say they want to observe the boxing or maybe join, but the dreamer's anxiety just flares up again. They decide that two adults walking in and signing up simultaneously looks quote-unquote unnatural.
Unnatural.
Think about that. Walking into a business to use their services is deemed unnatural. So the brain decides the most logical course of action is to stage a massive deception.
A huge, convoluted lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the friends works in television in the waking world. So the dreamer decides they will pretend to be doing a media interview, like a scouting mission for a film project. This fake TV interview becomes their Trojan horse.
Let's unpack the psychology of that Trojan horse, actually.
Yes, please.
Because why does the brain construct this specific elaborate lie? It is a classic manifestation of imposter syndrome. Inverted.
Inverted.
Yeah. The dreamer feels like a scolded, irresponsible child in the presence of the chairman because of their history of ghosting.
Right.
They have zero personal authority. By wrapping their return in the guise of a media production, they are trying to borrow institutional authority. A gym owner can scold a flaky student, sure, but they cannot scold a media professional who holds the key to free, lucrative publicity.
Wow. So it flips the dynamic entirely.
Exactly. The fake interview is a psychological shield designed to completely neutralize the chairman's perceived power advantage.
It's an attempt to overwrite the power dynamic. And to sell this lie, the dream gets even more granular. That's so funny. The friends start doctoring their smartphones.
This part is incredible.
It really is. In the dream's internal narrative, both friends are unmarried. But one friend changes their phone wallpaper to a close-up of a hand wearing a wedding ring.
And the other one?
The other friend changes theirs to a generic, stock image family photo. They are literally putting on digital costumes of adulthood.
They are constructing Jungian personas.
Tell me more about that.
The fake wedding rings and family photos, they symbolize a desperate attempt to project stability, maturity, and societal integration. They are silently signaling to the chairman, like, we are established, responsible adults with families and mortgages. We are not flaky kids who run away from our commitments.
Right, because that's what the dreamer actually feels like.
Precisely. The dreaming brain is manifesting the dreamer's deep-seated insecurity about their own maturity. Because the dreamer feels profoundly unreliable, the brain rapidly constructs these digital avatars of supreme responsibility to counter that internal inadequacy.
I mean, it is the exact plot of a 90s sitcom. This is George Costanza trying to pretend he's a marine biologist to impress a woman.
Totally.
Instead of just walking in and saying, hi, my friends want a box, they are staging a multimedia production with prop wedding rings. If you've ever caught yourself drafting a massive 5-paragraph email full of jargon just to ask your boss a simple question because you were afraid of looking incompetent, you're doing exactly what this dreamer is doing.
It's so true.
The waking anxiety is so intense that simple honesty is literally impossible in the dream world. The brain demands a labyrinth to avoid a straight line.
But a labyrinth built on a foundation of anxiety is inherently unstable, right?
Always.
The brain is running a threat simulation, which means it will inevitably introduce a variable to test the structural integrity of this elaborate defense mechanism. The shield of professionalism they tried to build is instantly punctured by a single accidental slip of the tongue.
Oh man, the trap is set. They are in the izakaya, the wallpapers are changed, the story is straight. One of the friends picks up the phone to make the fateful call to the gym to set up this fake media interview, and immediately chaos ensues.
Immediate chaos.
The friend accidentally uses casual speech on the phone out of sheer habit.
And we cannot overstate the cultural and linguistic gravity of this moment. In the Japanese language, the distinction between casual speech Tamaguchi and polite, respectful speech Kato is not just a matter of etiquette.
Right, it's way deeper than that.
It is the fundamental framework of social hierarchy. When speaking to a senior figure, a mentor, or a business owner like the gym chairman, using Tamaguchi is a direct violation of the social contract.
So it's not just a minor slip-up.
Not at all. It isn't just a faux pas. It signals a profound lack of respect and a direct challenge to the authority figure's status.
And the dreamer knows this implicitly. The social survival instinct just kicks in immediately. The text describes the dreamer's heart literally pounding in their chest.
The panic response.
Full panic. They are frantically doing these silent, desperate gestures across the pub table, trying to signal the friend to switch to polite speech. But the friend is oblivious and just keeps going.
It's agonizing to even think about.
And the reaction on the other end of the line is immediate. The chairman responds with casual speech back, but his tone instantly drops. He's clearly displeased. The dreamer's absolute worst, fear-angering this titan of an authority figure, is happening in real time before they even step foot in the building.
And this is where the neurobiology of dreaming introduces a really fascinating coping mechanism. Because the dream environment actually fractures here.
Fracturing?
Yeah. The text describes an omniscient perspective.
Right.
The dreamer is physically sitting in the pub, experiencing the autonomic nervous system response, heart pounding, sweating, watching their friend botch the phone call. But simultaneously, the dreamer's consciousness is magically present inside the gym, standing right next to the chairman, watching his reaction as he holds the receiver.
It's so crazy. The brain is essentially rendering two different rooms at the exact same time, like a video game trying to process too much map data. How is that even possible? You're terrified in the pub, but you're also playing an invisible observer in the gym?
It speaks to how the default mode network, or DMN, operates during REM sleep.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, in waking life, our sensory input restricts our consciousness to one physical location. But during REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, the logic center that enforces the laws of physics and linear time, is largely deactivated.
So the rules don't apply.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the DMN, which handles daydreaming, self-reflection, and perspective-taking, is hyperactive. When we send a stressful email in waking life, we have to sit with the agonizing linear unknown of how the other person is reacting.
The waiting is the hardest part.
Right. But the dreaming brain eliminates that unknown. It splits the consciousness to monitor the threat level from both the origin point and the destination point simultaneously.
Because it needs the data.
The brain needs immediate data on whether the lie is surviving this linguistic failure.
And miraculously, it does survive. Because reading the chairman's reaction to the slip-up, it feels like the dream is actively self-regulating its own chemical state. It spikes the dreamer's anxiety with the casual language, but then immediately soothes them.
It shifts gears rapidly.
Yeah, from that omniscient vantage point inside the gym, the dreamer watches the chairman's displeasure just melt into immense pride. The chairman is actually thrilled. He hangs up and starts bragging to the other gym members, saying, "This call is from the film industry. They're coming for an interview."
It is a subconscious dopamine hit.
Exactly. The brain manufactured a massive cortisol spike with the linguistic error, realized the simulation was about to crash from sheer panic, and rapidly injected dopamine by showing the chairman's ego being stroked.
A real-time neural negotiation.
Right. The brain is saying, yes, the friend was rude, but look at the data from the other room. The chairman is bragging. The Trojan horse is inside the gates. You are safe.
But that safety is a fragile illusion. Because the dream is still operating under threat simulation theory.
Remind me what that means again.
Evolutionary psychologists, like Antti Avansuo, argue that the biological function of dreaming is to simulate threatening events in a safe environment, so the organism can rehearse threat perception and avoidance.
Ah, okay, like a training ground.
Exactly. The brain has merely delayed the confrontation. The chairman expects a media crew. The dreamer now actually has to physically cross the threshold of the gym.
Which sets the stage for the inevitable collapse. They pull up to the gym, and what does the dreamer do? Do they walk in wearing their fake professional armor?
Of course not.
No. The moment the physical geography of the gym is in sight, the dreamer regresses entirely. They refuse to go inside. They hide in the back seat of a random car parked across the street and tell the friends, "Call me when it's done."
The psychological regression here is severe.
I mean, hiding in a stranger's car.
Hiding in the backseat of a stranger's car is a potent symbol of total passivity. In the architecture of a car, the back seat is where children sit, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The driver controls the velocity, and the destination. The dreamer has entirely abdicated responsibility for the incredibly volatile situation they orchestrated. They have pushed their friends into the line of fire while they retreat to a literal and figurative fetal position in the shadows.
It's the ultimate ghosting behavior again.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the ghosting behavior we discussed earlier, yeah.
If you've ever organized a massive group project at work, panicked at the final presentation, and forced your junior colleague to present the slides while you sat silently in the back of the Zoom call with your camera off, you understand the exact mechanics of this regression.
That is a very accurate comparison.
You orchestrate the event, but you cannot bear the physical scrutiny of the result. So the friends go in, and the dream ramps up the stakes significantly. The chairman is so blinded by the excitement of this fake media interview that he literally sprints out of the gym building to the house next door to fetch formal contract papers.
He is all in.
His wife is inside the gym helping with the administrative work. It's a flurry of manic, hopeful activity.
And the simulation is generating major cognitive dissonance here. The chairman isn't just passively accepting the interview, he is actively investing emotional energy, hope, and administrative effort into it.
He's running for contracts.
Right. He believes his business is getting a major life-changing break. And the gap between his genuine excitement and the dreamer's hollow deception is widening by the second, which creates an unbearable psychic tension for the dreamer hiding in the car.
And the dreamer can't just leave well enough alone. That's a tragic flaw in anxiety-driven control. They try to micromanage from the shadows.
Which never works.
No. They call one of the friends out of the gym to the parking lot to scheme more, to adjust the lies on the fly. It's that classic anxiety loop. You try to control a situation you're actively avoiding, which just creates infinitely more chaos.
Exactly.
And because they are lingering, because they are pulling the strings from the parking lot, the timing gets fundamentally messed up. The chairman returns with the contracts too early.
The collision of the two realities.
Yeah.
The simulation reaches its critical testing point right here.
The chairman spots the dreamer hovering around outside, and instantly the illusion shatters. The chairman isn't a fool. He sees the former student who habitually ghosts him, sees the friend who made the rude phone call, and connects the dots in a millisecond.
The jig is up.
He realizes the entire TV interview, the whole media production, the entire premise of the last hour was a ruse.
And at this moment, the dreamer's brain must render the consequence of the ultimate social failure. Like, how does the subconscious visualize the wrath of the authority figure?
Well, it visualizes it with explosive, kinetic energy. The source text notes that the chairman makes a furious tongue-clicking sound.
Oh, that sound.
Yeah, a universally recognized micro-expression of deep disgust and frustration. He says, "You again." You really are. And then the genre of the dream violently shifts. We go from a tense, awkward sitcom to a gritty action sequence.
A total genre shift.
The chairman doesn't just yell, he jumps into the very car the dreamer was originally hiding in.
The vehicle of wrath.
Let's talk about that.
This is where dream symbology becomes incredibly precise. Because the brain doesn't just spawn a generic monster, it curates the threat. The text describes this car very specifically. It is a beat-up, cheap, but vintage-feeling diesel car.
A vintage diesel car. When I read that, it felt so incredibly specific. Why not a sleek sports car or a military tank or just a generic sedan? Like, why a diesel car specifically?
Well, think about it. I look at it as a physical manifestation of cognitive dissonance and the weight of history. The car is a direct proxy for the chairman himself, or at least how the dreamer perceives him.
Okay, how so?
It is old school. It is deeply established. A diesel engine is loud, right?
Yeah.
It rumbles. It creates physical vibration. It demands attention.
Right, you can't ignore it.
Exactly. It blows thick black smoke, representing something toxic, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore once it's in motion. The car is unrefined, unstoppable power.
Wow.
When the chairman gets behind the wheel and floors the gas pedal, steering this loud, smoky, roaring machine straight at the dreamer, it's not just a punishment. It's a fear of being fundamentally overpowered by the inescapable reality of their own past actions.
The dreamer is treating this gym owner like an unstoppable force of destruction, but this shows how guilt completely distorts our perception of reality, right?
It completely distorts it.
The dreamer's internal guilt has amplified their expectation of the chairman's anger to a lethal degree. In the waking world, if the chairman figured out this lie, he might just yell or kick them out or just be incredibly annoyed.
Right. He'd be mad, but he wouldn't commit vehicular manslaughter.
Exactly. But in the dream world, fueled by the dreamer's deep-seated shame, The brain's logic dictates that the only appropriate response is for the chairman to actively try to run them over with a heavy piece of machinery.
The threat simulation is maxing out the stakes. The chase sequence forces the dreamer out of their passive hiding spot.
Because they can't hide anymore.
Right. Running is no longer an abstract concept like ghosting from a gym membership. It is now an immediate physical necessity for survival. The brain is forcing the dreamer into a corner to see how they respond when all avoidance tactics are exhausted.
So the dreamer runs for their life. They escape across the street into an abandoned parking lot. And the environmental rendering shifts again to match the psychological state. The text describes it as a lot full of junk cars, and the dreamer hides behind a rainwater tank.
It feels incredibly discarded.
Like a wasteland of broken things, yeah.
Yeah. A junkyard is the perfect architectural setting for the climax of this psychological narrative. It represents things that have been abandoned, neglected, left to rust, much like the dreamer's relationship with the gym, their own commitments, and the chairman himself.
That's a powerful visual.
And the rainwater tank is a fascinating, subtle detail, too.
Why is a tank?
It's a large container designed to hold something that falls from the sky, accumulating over time. Symbolically, it mirrors the accumulation of all these unexpressed emotions, this massive reservoir of anxiety and tears that the dreamer has been storing up, which is about to violently spill over.
And in this junkyard of abandoned commitments, the chairman easily finds them. Of course he does. You cannot outrun the architect of the simulation inside your own head.
Nope, they always catch you.
The dreamer is terrified. They scramble and climb up a high fence to escape toward an adjacent office building. The fence is the final physical barrier. It's the absolute dead end.
Fences in dream psychology are profound boundaries.
In what way?
Well, in the context of the brain's neural network rendering this environment, the fence represents the edge of the simulation. It is the limit of how far the avoidance strategy can take them.
They've literally reached the end of the map.
Exactly. The dreamer is clinging to this chain link fence, expecting the ultimate violent punishment. They literally state in the journal that they expected to be caught and physically beaten. They are braced for the violent impact of the authority figure's wrath.
But here is where the dream completely subverts expectations and where the true, heartbreaking meaning of this entire narrative is finally revealed.
This is the best part.
The chairman catches up to the fence, but he doesn't climb it. He doesn't attack. The loud, smoky, aggressive diesel engine energy just instantly stops.
Just evaporates.
Instead, he simply grabs the fence, looks up at the dreamer clinging to it, and his tone isn't furious anymore. It's almost hurt. He asks a simple, devastating question. Why do you do things like this?
Why do you do things like this? That single question fractures the entire threat simulation.
It's so vulnerable.
It is not a threat. It is a desperate invitation to vulnerability. It shatters the monster illusion the dreamer has created. The chairman isn't a lethal force of destruction. He is a human being, genuinely confused and hurt by the erratic, bizarre behavior of someone he clearly remembers and perhaps cared about.
Right.
This question punctures the massive balloon of the dreamer's anxiety. The avoidance tactic has failed. The elaborate TV lie has failed. The physical running has failed. There's absolutely nowhere left to go but inward.
And the dreamer finally breaks. Hanging on that fence, half paralyzed by terror, they just start crying. And they scream their true feelings. It's a total, unedited, emotional purge.
A complete release.
They admit everything. They yell down at him like, I am terrified of you. You are exactly the type of person I am bad at dealing with. That's why I ghosted you. But I loved boxing. That's why I always came back. That's why I brought you months of back pay even when I didn't have to.
It is the ultimate psychological catharsis. The dreamer is finally articulating the incredibly complex, contradictory emotions that have been warring inside their subconscious for months, maybe years.
The fear versus the love.
Exactly. The primal fear of the man versus the genuine love of the sport. The shame of their avoidance versus their desperate, clumsy attempts at financial restitution. But the true breakthrough, the psychological crux that makes this dream so profound, is the final twist the dreamer reveals to the chairman.
Yes, the twist that recontextualizes this entire deep dive. The dreamer reveals why they brought the friends and orchestrated the fake TV interview in the first place.
This is where it gets really crazy.
Through tears, they yell, if I quit, your income drops by one person. I introduced two people so your burden would be lighter. Don't you understand?
We have to pause and marvel at the twisted, tragic beauty of the dreamer's logic here.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. This entire elaborate, absurd, sitcom-esque lie wasn't just about cowardly avoidance. It was, in the deepest recesses of the dreamer's mind, a profoundly misguided act of financial altruism.
The dreamer isn't just running from fear. They are running from the fact that they actually deeply care about this terrifying man's livelihood.
Precisely. The dreamer felt they did not have the moral right to simply walk away from a commitment, even one that was causing them severe clinical distress, because they felt personally responsible for the chairman's economic well-being.
Wow.
They believed they could only earn their freedom, their right to exit the gym, by replacing their own financial value with two new paying members.
They commodified themselves?
Exactly. They turned themselves into a commodity, believing their only worth to this authority figure was the monthly fee. The lie, the fake interview, the digital wedding rings, it was all a desperate, convoluted attempt to protect the very person they were terrified of.
If that doesn't perfectly encapsulate the tragedy of human relationships, I don't know what does. We build massive, terrifying monsters out of people we actually respect and don't want to disappoint.
All the time.
We project all our insecurities, our imposter syndrome, and our guilt onto them until they seem like unapproachable titans in vintage diesel cars. And the heartbreaking reality is that the other person usually has absolutely no idea we are doing this.
Not at all.
The dream brilliantly shows the chairman's reaction to this confession. He is stunned. The text explicitly says his expression was trembling.
The human connection is made.
He is deeply moved as he realizes the sheer weight of this complex loyalty that this former suitor has been carrying entirely alone. He looks up and says, "You were thinking of something like that."
The monster is instantly humanized.
Completely.
The dreamer's raw vulnerability forces the dream avatar of the chairman to drop his intimidating combative facade and respond with genuine human empathy. It is the exact resolution the dreamer has been starved for in their waking life: to be truly seen, to be understood, and to be forgiven, not just for the act of ghosting, but for the messy, complicated, painful way they care about others.
But just as this profound emotional breakthrough happens, just as the connection is finally made across the chain-link fence, the biological reality of the body reasserts itself.
Ah, yes. The wake-up protocol.
The dream world cannot sustain this level of emotional intensity. The physical sensation of the dream ending begins to violently bleed into the narrative.
Dreams are incredibly fragile neurochemical constructs. They require a very delicate balance of neurotransmitters to maintain the illusion of a continuous reality.
Which they are losing grip on.
Right. When an emotion reaches an extreme, unprecedented peak, whether it's sheer terror, intense grief, or in this case a massive, overwhelming cathartic release of long-repressed guilt, it destabilizes the sleep state. The brain's arousal centers are activated too strongly, signaling the body to wake up.
The text describes this transition so vividly. The dreamer is on the fence. They try to keep speaking, to keep pouring out these long-held feelings to the chairman, but their speech starts to physically fail. It becomes slurred.
The system is crashing.
Yeah, the words won't form. And then the voice turns into what the dreamer describes as static or noise. It's like a broken signal on an old analog television set.
This is a textbook visceral description of rematonia crashing into waking consciousness.
Rematonia. Break that down for me.
During REM sleep, our brainstem, specifically an area called the pons, releases neurotransmitters like GABA and glycine to actively paralyze our major voluntary muscle groups.
Oh, to stop us from acting out the dreams?
Exactly. This is a vital evolutionary safety feature called rematonia. It prevents us from physically running into walls or jumping out of windows while we dream.
So the body is under a chemical lockdown.
Exactly. But the emotional purge on the fence was so powerful, it initiated the wake-up sequence in the brain before the paralysis protocol on the brainstem had time to fully lift.
So the brain is awake, but the body is asleep.
Pretty much. The static the dreamer hears, the slurred speech, is the literal boundary between the subconscious mind and the physical body failing to connect. The brain is frantically trying to send motor commands to the vocal cords to keep talking to the chairman, but the physical vocal cords are still paralyzed by GABA and glycine. The signal cannot go through. It manifests in the dream as auditory static.
The emotional data load was so heavy it literally short-circuited the biological hardware.
That's a great way to visualize it.
The dreamer wakes up, and they realize that the extreme emotional arousal triggered a physical crossover. They wake up in that bizarre liminal space of sleep paralysis where the emotion is 100% present. I mean, the tears might actually be wet on their physical face, their heart rate is through the roof, but they cannot physically vocalize the words they were just screaming in the simulation.
It leaves a profound somatic echo. The physical body remembers the stress, the crying, the immense relief of the confession, even as the conscious mind slowly boots up and realizes the entire environment was a fabrication.
A ghost in the machine.
Right. But we must emphasize, the emotional truth of the experience is entirely real. The dreamer woke up having actually processed that repressed guilt. They have the agonizing conversation they desperately needed to have, even if it was facilitated by a phantom generated by their own neural networks.
Which brings us to the core takeaway of this incredibly dense, fascinating narrative. If you just read the plot, it's a weird nightmare about a scary boxing coach and a fake TV show.
On the surface, sure.
But when we look at the mechanics, it is a profound exploration of how we mask our guilt.
It perfectly illustrates how our desire to protect others and to protect ourselves from the paralyzing shame of disappointing them can lead us to build massive, impenetrable walls of avoidance.
The labyrinths we build.
We concoct elaborate lies, we cast the people we respect as villains to justify our distance, and we run away, all to avoid having a simple, honest conversation about our own limitations. The dream engineered a scenario that stripped away every single defense mechanism, forcing the dreamer into a corner where the only weapon left was absolute honesty.
And that honesty completely disarmed the monster. I want to bring this right to you listening to us right now. Think about the architecture of your own anxieties. How many vintage diesel cars are currently chasing you in your own life?
We all have a few.
How many elaborate sitcom-level schemes have you concocted recently? Maybe you aren't staging fake TV interviews, but what about the white lies? The carefully crafted excuses, the delayed emails, the ghosted text threads, the meetings you dodge.
The ghosts of commitments past.
Exactly. How much energy are you expending just to avoid having a simple, honest conversation with someone you respect or someone you are terrified of disappointing?
It's a universal human habit to build a labyrinth to avoid walking a straight line. We endure the chronic, agonizing exhaustion of running because we dramatically overestimate the danger of simply stopping.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. The next time you wake up from a frantic, stressful dream one where you are running, hiding, or tangled in some impossible web of anxiety, don't just shake it off, grab your coffee, and forget it.
Pay attention to the data.
Look at the data your brain just gave you. Ask yourself, what is the fence in that dream? What is the absolute dead end you are so terrified of reaching in your waking life? And if you stopped running, turned around, and finally faced the thing chasing you, what is the truth you are actually desperately trying to yell out loud?
Because until you say it out loud, your subconscious will just keep building bigger monsters to chase you.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating, frustrating, and incredibly beautiful architecture of the dreaming mind. We will catch you next time.